Well, good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hope everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I'm going to drop a link in the chat section here for everybody. This is what we're going to look at today. This is in regards to government property, and this is under Title 48 CFR, which is Federal Acquisitions Regulations. So again, one reminder, the only way the government can have any kind of property is through an acquisition, and that is merely the rights, titles, interests, and stuff like that. They cannot actually possess physically the property. They have to do everything through contracting, which is leasing and everything. So we're going to take a look at that. And as we see, screen set up here. Federal acquisition regulation systems, clauses and forms, solicitation provisions and contract clauses, text of provisions and clauses, government property. So under the acquisitions, the clauses, there's stipulations about what that property is. This is what is fucking us. Everybody thinks that's my property. In tangible, real sense, it is, but in concept, the government believes it's theirs and operates it that way in a military fashion. Ouch. Excuse me. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that in this government property stuff here. So as we go down, it says government property as prescribed in 45.107A, insert the following clause. I want you guys to look at this clause. This is a clause. As used in this clause, definitions is the clause. And it is a clause. But what happens is none of this gets conveyed to any of the contracts that everybody else is contracting. So everything is still just a presumption. And this particular one is for all government contracts, specifically for things like, say, your airports, airplane designers and stuff like that, your automotive industries, the big contractors. As for the individuals like us, it's supposed to apply, it's presumed to apply, because every form that they send out is a subscription to a government contract. Social Security is the main component. So now that we realize, and there's the end of the clause. This is an alternate substitute following for paragraph H1 of the basic clause, and look how short this one is. Now there's alternate 2 of the basic clause. So we see the last 2 alternates are really short, but the one that the government's supposed to have for themselves, and this is why I say that the contractor assumes the risk of and shall be responsible for any loss of government property upon its delivery to the contractor as government furnished property. Those forms are government furnished property. Okay, so when Social Security supplies you with a SS5 and you fill it out, you have just contracted with the government under a basic contract with simple contract terms. However, the contractor is not responsible for reasonable wear and tear of government property or for government property properly consumed in performing this contract. And this is your foods and things like that are properly consumed, your soaps and hygiene products that are properly consumed. Those are government products, property that have been imported into the United States. And that's why it becomes government property. Title II property and other tangible personal real property or personal property purchased with funds available for research and having a unit acquisition cost of less than $5,000 shall vest in the contractor upon acquisition or as soon thereafter as feasible. So anything we buy that's under $5,000, and we're presumed to be the contractor that's buying it as an acquisition for the government or for a contract. So let's go up here in the first part and look at these contract, the definitions that they put in here. In the first one, cannibalize means to remove parts from government property for use or installation on other government property. Contractor acquired property means property acquired, fabricated, or otherwise provided by the contractor for performing a contract and to which the government has a title. So when we go into these courts and we're giving them data elements, we are providing the property. We're providing the elements they need to perform the contract. We are providing the property of the contract, which is the terms and conditions. It's an intangible property. Contractor inventory means any property acquired by and in the possession of a contractor or subcontractor under a contract for which title is vested in the government. That receipt, that's a title. It's vested in the government. They have to give you a receipt because it's got a tax issue on it. The United States has an interest. Give it back to them. It's their title. Full acquittance and discharge. Government and which exceeds the amounts needed to complete full performance under the entire contract. Any property that the government is obligated or has the option to take over under any type of contract. That's that receipt I was just talking about. As a result, either of any changes in the specifications or plans they're under, or of the termination of the contract. Full acquittance and discharge of the contract. Each purchase is considered a contract performance. It's the performance of a contract. And therefore you have to terminate the contract by giving the title to the contract back to them. You don't want any titles. You want the property. Government furnished property that exceeds the amounts needed to complete full performance under the entire contract. Contractors' managerial personnel means the contractor's directors, officers, managers, superintendents, or equivalent representatives who have supervision or direction of all or substantially all of the contractor's business. You are presumed to be a contractor, and you're a representative by the contractor known as Social Security. You're an authorized representative to contract. All or substantially all of the contractor's operation at any one plant. There's that plant or separate location or a separate and complete major industrial operation. This is that complete major industrial operation I was talking about with the automobile manufacturers and aeronautics industry and space industry and fuel industry. And they're all major contractors with the government. Demilitarization. Get this one, folks. Demilitarization means rendering a product unsafe for or not restorable to the purpose for which designed or customarily used. So it's not been trashed, it's been demilitarized.
To control us.
Does that make sense? If everything is run by the military and the government claims title to property, holding property in abeyance until a rightful claimant comes forward, makes a valid claim, they're doing so under a military fashion to protect the property. If it's no longer able to be used, it becomes demilitarized. So again, we go right back to they can only acquire property for military use. Then what is the military using or holding property in abeyance for? They're either holding it or they're either using it, one or the other. So when they're using it, it's no longer for the purpose for which it was designed or customarily used. Is everything for military use? No. So they have to classify the term use. What do you mean by use? Are you going to store it until it becomes demilitarized? Is that your use of it? Mainly just to keep it from somebody who isn't using it according to a contract that's presumed? We really have to start looking at this stuff, people.
That would be contradictory.
Yes. It's very contradictory. Fifth Amendment says that they can only take property for use under the military.
Right?
That's in the Constitution. Yet the government professes to acquisition property for contract. And then they start talking about all these storage and holding facilities. Then they start talking about property on, commercial on-the-shelf items that are abandoned.
That's not using, that's hoarding.
If they're not being used in 30-day period, then they're actually considered abandoned. They're demilitarized. That makes sense. That's what my friend Malika does. It's abandoned. It's on the shelf. It's abandoned. It's not being used for the military. That's why it's on a store shelf being sold to civilians. And if you're cognitive enough, you catch that, you don't buy it. You send them notices letting them know that you are aware that it is abandoned property of military that's been demilitarized. And it's up for grabs. Just because somebody wants to sell it doesn't mean they have to sell it. Doesn't mean that you can't have it without buying it.
What about all the money it costs to transport, ship, and store and maintain?
Is what they're selling it for? Yes. The storage of
so it has to be paid for to take
right.
it.
All of it has to be paid for. If they're not doing it, if they're not doing that, then okay, let's point out if they're putting it on a shelf and they have to have overhead costs to cover the product for storing it, it's a lease.
Yeah.
It's a rental agreement. And that's what your contracts are. Every last one of them is a rental agreement.
But there still has to be an exchange to take it.
Right. And this is called full acquittance and discharge. See,
what I'm saying is you have to pay to take it out of there. You can't just grab it.
If the government already has title to it and it's sitting there on a shelf and you take it and go through a cash register, the government gives you title to it. Are you the beneficiary? Not if you have title to it. If you have title to it, you are the trustee.
In exchange for some form of promise to pay.
Correct. Correct. So now you hand that title back because you've already paid.
I mean, just write a freaking IOU on a piece of toilet paper, hand it to the cashier, and walk out the door.
Well, technically you could do that, but they don't understand that. So what you have to do is you have to give them a notice, a full-fledged notice like Malika did. Malika sent notices out to all the vendors in her area and let them know she is not buying and selling, that she is the end user and she has the right to acquire that abandoned property. And she goes in and gets her groceries and walks right out. Been doing it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how long she's been doing it.
I want to see that. I want to see that. She's got to do that on video. I want to see it.
Well, it's not something you advertise. One time. So if you want to see it, go out there and visit her in Washington and walk into the store with her. She's not going to video it.
Well, they're videoing her. They've got her on video.
Yeah, but they're not going to flash it out there and let everybody know, hey, this woman walks in and out of our store daily and takes food and we don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Not going to do that.
I want to see it.
When my kids worked at Marshall's, they did the same thing. They worked at Marshall's and behind the counter, people would rush in, they would just, it was a grab and they'd go out the front door and they weren't allowed to stop them.
You mean loot?
Yeah, well, there was looting and there was people who would shop and just go right out the front. They would actually shop around the store and then just leave with their cart full of stuff
When
without checking
I
out.
see looting, I don't consider it criminal. I mean, people are actually, whether they know it or realize it or not, are grabbing what is theirs, already paid for. It's already
That's
paid.
that's my understanding now. But
Yeah.
I mean, then I equated it to looting. Just like what we see on TV, the smash and grabs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not what we're trying to push. I don't do what Malika does myself yet, because I've got an instrument that I hope to continue using, and in that process be able to, once I use it, issue take the receipt and issue the full acquittance and discharge, and have that amount that I had charged on that credit card return back to the credit card.
There has to be an accounting.
Right.
Be
And so
something.
that's my view. There should be an accounting, because the way Malika does it, it works, but there should be an accounting. That way they can't come after you for theft and say, well, there's no receipt. Where's your receipt? They want to
Yeah, I want to
guarantee
see
you
that.
got a
Yes, I want
receipt.
to see it.
Didn't she already return the certificate and rescind the signature so that they're
Right. I don't know what she filed. I'm gonna have to talk to her yet sometime, but she gave them, she wrote a notice out and sent it out to like 25 different stores in her area, Lowe's, grocery stores, Walmart, all kinds of stores, and letting them know that she's gonna come in, and
Share that
that's
shit.
her position, is that it belongs to her already because it's already paid.
Yeah, share that shit so we can do it.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. As long as there's an accounting, I don't care.
And so the next one, and these are the last two I'm going to read over, and I'm going to post these in the comment section so everybody's got them, because this is what they're working on. It says government furnished property and government property. And government furnished property, and this is what we're talking about with all the stores. The products in all stores were imported, and therefore the government presumes that they furnished it through the importation. Okay, means property in the possession of or directly acquired by the government and subsequently furnished to the contractor for performance of a contract. So the government acquires it through the imports, like I said, and then subsequently furnishes it through transportation, interstate and intrastate transportation, to the contractors in the various different states. Government furnished property includes, but is not limited to, spares and property furnished for repair, maintenance, overhaul, or modification. Government furnished property also includes contractor acquired property. So in other words, the government, like I said earlier, when you're out there buying something from the store, they presume you to be a contractor and you acquired government property. Now, wait a minute. Didn't they already claim that it was government property furnished to a contractor? And now the contractor sold it, and now I'm a contractor and I acquired it for the government? How ridiculous does that sound, people? I mean, if I'm not reading it right, let me know, but that's the way it sounds to me. Contractor acquired property, if the contractor acquired property is a deliverable under a cost contract when accepted by the government for continued use under the contract. Continued use is where we're getting caught up. When we go to the dealership and we buy a car, it's a military vehicle, and we bought it for continued use. We've been suckered into this all our lives. And we've got to realize, no, we're not buying it as a contractor for continued use of government property. We're not doing that. The next one is government property means all property owned or leased by the government. Now, this goes to property held in abeyance by the government. If there is no claim on the property, the land, the government claims ownership of the land and then leases the property on top of the land. They're leasing the houses through real estate transactions using bankers, brokers, lawyers, and landlords. Government property includes both government furnished and contractor acquired property. So government furnished property is government property, which means it's all property owned or leased by the government. So in government property includes material, equipment, special tooling, special test equipment, and real property. Really? Government property does not include intellectual property and software. See, they need that intellectual property in order to move those contracts. If you don't give them that intellectual property, you can't be presumed as a contractor, period. Quit giving them the data elements. And with that, I'm going to open the board early tonight because I think we need to start discussing some things. I think the next Zoom I do is going to be the last one for the mastering or reconciling the master trust account. I'm going to take some time off and consolidate all the videos and go over them so that we can do some further Zooms that will be a little bit more comprehensive and hopefully with material to go on. Like I said, I'm working on my companion's case right now in regards to retirement and getting everything removed from probate and establish her private estate. And when we do that, we're going to be hopefully establishing that master trust account. And so hopefully by the time I get through going through all these videos and revamping the material, and if you look at my site, I've been posting my adoptions and the notices from all the material that we've been going through on the site so that it will now be recognized. And if there's any errors or omissions that need to be taken out, then I can do that. But in the meantime, the consolidation will help me more fine tune it, along with, like I said, operating my companion's estate matters and establishing a master trust with her account to give people a now time step by step. Because I know David asked that, what do we have a step by step yet? No, I am still working on it. And the first step is research, figuring out what you need to do according to your own situation. My situation, I don't have anything but a document from the court that I need to write up a correction of the record and then do a assignment for acquittance and discharge, and then anything that might be residual be transferred to a master trust account through an irrevocable letter of credit. I don't know that we'll need to do an irrevocable letter of credit with my companion because we'll be doing I've got a birth certificate. We're going to just do a regular banker's acceptance for her IPERS and then just transfer that to the master trust account. So it's already got credits established. And I would think there's going to be enough when we do all the immediate acceleration, everything that comes back should be enough to just establish a regular estate that we can build on from there. So we'll find out. In the meantime, the board is open. The comments are in the chat section. The link is in the chat section as well. So questions, comments, concerns, complaints, all welcome. Just realize that everything that is determined to be property, aside from intellectual property and software, computer software, government presumes that it owns it all.
You're going to move your videos over to Word, right?
Over to what?
Over to your main site, your .art site. All the vids.
No, they're gonna be on YouTube. I've got them established in their own file on YouTube.
Well, you're going to have them backed up just in case.
Yeah, I've got them on my external drive. I've got them on Facebook. I've got them on YouTube. And when I get done, I'll be posting the link to my YouTube for those specific Reconciling Master Trust account on the Word.
Gotcha. Just make sure you have some redundancy. That's all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Because we're on 39 tonight, and I'm going to end it I think I'm going to end it with tomorrow night. And like I said, take a break and go through and start reviewing all the material, because I know it's a lot of information, guys, but even for me, it is a lot of information, and I've got to go back and through and review to make sure I know what I'm talking about, make sure I haven't made any mistakes, pointed things out in the wrong or something like that. So, and I hope you guys are reviewing it too, because if it's a lot of information for me, then I know you're not catching it all either. This is all just information that's on the public record, and according to the way it's written in plain language on those titles to their codes. The titles themselves are simplifications of what the codes are about, and we need to start reading those plain languages. Go ahead, Lori.
So if we're supposed to be self-governing, then I suppose that would make us part of the government. And I think that's a part that I've been coming to is starting to recognize that, there's this huge discrepancy in communication about, well, who is the United States and who's the United States of America and which one is the actual republic.
I can.
And those seats are all vacated.
Let her finish, Dave.
What were you saying, David?
I was trying to help.
So,
Go ahead.
Well, with that, there comes the whole issue coming in contract, which is what nations do whenever they're recognized and even maybe becoming signatory, like we talked about in the beginning, Keith, of the different conventions. So I'm interested in going through, I've looked at a couple of those articles and what are needed. At some point, if we could go through those in particular, that'd be good, like consolidated. Because there's different elements from, say, the Geneva Convention as opposed to the Hague that need to be, I think, incorporated.
Yeah, most certainly. And I'm always open to suggestions, guys. So please do bring that stuff forward. But what I'd like you to do is, like I said, I'm going to go through and review the material, and I'm going to start making specific points. And because I know there's a lot of material that I reviewed that a lot of people aren't going to use. The forest and reclamation of land and stuff. Some people aren't going to use that. Some people are going to be comfortable living in town and staying where they're at. There are others that are going to want to use that and want to go out and get a 20-acre lot, and have the Forestry Service and the National Forestry Service, Conservation Department, Environmental Protection, all them guys involved as protecting internationally protected persons on that land.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
In regard to Lori's comments, I think, and this is my opinion, I think that simplicity boils down to establishing or reestablishing who are the employees and who are the employers.
Right. There are three phases of government that we're thinking about, and most people only see the two, the government and the people. Whereas the reality is the government is for certain people that can't take care of themselves. And then the third one, of course, is the one that's superior to both of those. And that's the people that are self-governing and are supposed to help the government in direction on how to take care of the people that can't. And what we've done is we've lost that priority class of people that will stand up and say, okay, well, I'm going to donate my time.
Right. And we self-govern will have our employees govern those that cannot or don't want to govern themselves amicably, right. Not suppressively like rulers and shit. None of that.
Yeah, and that's why we end up with city councils that get paid. The city council shouldn't get paid. Your government shouldn't get paid. Not in that sense. Your contractors that carry out the duties of government, such as, the transportation of those goods, the construction of new buildings and stuff within cities. Yeah. But those that are just sitting at a desk holding council meetings and saying, well, yeah, this is part of this charter. That's your own business. That's your own business. It doesn't parlay on to the rest of the community. If you want to run your economics, do it. But don't charge the people for your economics. And then say, well, since you agreed to let us charge you for the economics, now you're involved in all of it. And now what city council says applies to you too.
Big part of the problem is too many chickens in government running around with their heads cut off.
Too many chiefs.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't.
Yep.
They're just doing whatever.
And they're doing it because they were appointed.
Right. Yeah. And they just take on arbitrary roles.
Yeah, somebody gave me a paper, said I was appointed. I don't know who they are, nothing, but I got a paper says I was appointed.
I don't know what to do. I'm just going to wing it.
Yep.
We do what works.
And that's literally what they're doing. I've got people that are sending out notices to attorneys that they have no authority, and the attorneys are writing back and saying, well, you're threatening us. Well, what are you doing dipping your fucking nose in my business for? That's not a threat.
That kind of self-importance.
That's a truth. You're dipping your nose into my business and you have no authority to do so.
Right.
Here are the consequences according to your own law that you attorneys wrote. What do you mean it's a threat? Then quit threatening yourself, you dumbass.
Self-importance and abuse is born out of ignorance.
Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with, and that's why I say you've got to get over the internal conflicts so you can realize that everybody else is caught up in those same internal conflicts. They're just doing their job. And if they don't do their job, they're going to lose their job. And then they're going to go hungry. And that's the internal conflict. Well, I got to do my job.
It's intentionally constructed that way, in my view, by those that so-called are in power, those that hide behind the curtain, manipulate.
They know that it only takes one man can control 100 by himself by indoctrination. One man can control 100 people by himself through indoctrination. This is why in Roots, they expressed the very clear concept in the days of slavery that they didn't want the slaves learning to read.
Just like Biden puppets.
Yep.
Reading legalese is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
There's not a lot of people. You helped you like helping realize that
You're breaking up again, girl.
It's intentionally designed to be complicated and hard to confront and mind-boggling.
Well, when we look at 1 USC 1, we realize that it says all kinds of things that should make us double think things. If it says an individual, if singular means plural and plural means singular, then when we're talking about an individual, we're talking about several individuals. In other words, when they say an individual, person, corporation, we're talking about multiple individuals in each case.
Yeah, that's how they, Keith, isn't that how they, the whole pluribus, like when someone picks a representative, okay, and they send it off to the state, then the state has the Senate that represents them, right, and the House of Representatives. And it used to be that families did that. So say like Keith or you, David, or me, instead of like these random weirdos that I don't know who live in the general vicinity, the whole point of having representation is someone from the actual family, not from just random people that lived in the same general area.
Exactly. And that's what the electoral vote did. When they instituted the electoral vote, that's a violation. That's a constitutional violation. What they do is they take a community that goes and votes, and they've got an electoral that will take those votes and determine, according to his own opinion, whether those people voted right or not. That's not the way it's supposed to work. The
And
people
that is
and the
built
people
by
vote their
association.
way for a reason, and it's not to be determined by somebody else whether they voted right or wrong. That's
There's
why I
no,
never registered to vote. Never. If you're going to take my thought and determine therefrom whether I'm right or wrong, then why even ask me to vote?
there's no training or heading on managing public affairs. There's,
None.
you know, just,
No, it's all built on the training of using your discretion.
yeah, arbitrary.
Yep. Same with police officers. It's arbitrary. Use your own discretion.
Insanity, absolute insanity.
Well, that's what everybody needs to do. Everybody needs to start using your own discretion.
That's self-governing. That's what self-governing
Yes.
is about, and you educate yourself. You don't just go out there with like a chicken with your head cut off, doing the same thing.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was doing. 93 cases. I was out there running around with
Yeah.
like a chicken with my head cut off. Now, yeah, and now look, I put my word down and I haven't reneged on it. I quit signing. I've not signed anything since, and I'll be damned. 93 cases in 3 decades, and all of a sudden now 6 years. Nada.
Right.
And I don't file documents, people. I write letters, notices for my companion when credit collectors come after her, and then we never hear back from them. Never hear back from them. They quit writing. One notice usually. Doom. Done.
Now we're effectively correcting our statuses, and we're going to take charge and responsibility, and we're going to handle this shit. We're going to handle our employees.
Yep. And with that, we're done, folks. Thank you for joining me. God bless you all. I love you. I'll see you again tomorrow night for the final Master Trust class. In this first session, we'll do another set of classes on more composite material. God bless you all.
Night. Later on.
Love it.